As this is the first Sunday of the new church year, we also switched to a new lectionary year. Last year, in year A, we focused on Matthew with our gospel readings. And this year, year B, focuses on Mark, the shortest and the oldest of the four gospels. But if you expected to start at the beginning and with a story about Jesus' conception or his family background or his childhood, now at the beginning of Advent, I must disappoint you. As a matter of fact, today's gospel reading didn't sound really different from what we have heard over the last couple of weeks. It sounds like Matthew. Stay awake, keep alert, beware. No one knows the hour or the day, be prepared. And all that comes dressed into an end-of-time vision with darkening skies, a lightless moon, and falling stars. Then the Son of Man will appear coming in clouds with great power and glory, and his elect will be gathered by angels from everywhere on the planet. So again, the tone of that's it or time's up. And at the same time, wait for the Lord and be prepared. Again, an apocalypse. Again, the question, what does this text mean for us here today? And where's the good news? Be prepared and wait. Wait. Waiting is a typical Advent word. Wait for the coming of the Lord. Wait for the apocalypse. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty much done with waiting this year. We've already waited a lot. If waiting is what Advent means, then we've been in Advent since March. My sense of time of the past 9 months feels weird as well. There's this uneventful monotony of staying at home day after day, week after week, with 1 month blending indistinguishable into the next. And at the same time, the month passed away quickly. So many things have happened in and outside of our homes. So many things to restructure, to rethink, to reorganize, and so much news to digest. Therefore, I'm also kind of surprised that we are already 9 months into this. I feel as if my sense of time is playing tricks on me. And the only sorting structure I can apply is pre-COVID era and COVID era. But wait, isn't that what happens when you've experienced life-changing or even traumatic events? There's a time before and the time after, cut into two by a certain event in our lives, like before 9/11 and after 9/11. And there's no way back to the life we lived before this event. So looking at the gospel text this way, there might be something more for us in there, except the keep awake, be alert, beware. I mentioned before that the Gospel of Mark is the oldest gospel, written around the year 70. But there was another event that happened at that time. There was a war going on, the first Jewish-Roman war that culminated that very year, 70, into the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Dramatic and traumatic experiences. And these experiences found its way into the gospel and are reflected in this small apocalypse, as this paragraph, our gospel reading today, is called. And though in the gospel itself it is Jesus telling his disciples about what to expect when the end is coming, the background is actually the author of the gospel speaking about the experience of the people in that very year 70. And what the author tries to do is to offer hope. Hope in a time of big uncertainty, instability, and insecurity. How different and less threatening does the text sound if you keep that in mind? In those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. And the stars will be falling from heaven and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. Thinking about it, apocalypses might have a bad reputation for no good reason. We refer to any larger scale catastrophic event as an apocalypse. But what we actually mean is a catastrophe, a disaster, or a crisis. By using the words apocalypse in this sense, we are missing the crucial point of the apocalypse, the moment of revelation, of unveiling, of uncovering, because that is what apocalypse means. And this moment is not supposed to scare or to threaten, but to give hope and comfort. In those days after that suffering, they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. It is after that suffering. There is a future, and this future will be so different from what we have to suffer now, so different from what we see happening around us, so different from our reality. There is hope, and there is the promise, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. There are many apocalyptic texts and even some complete apocalyptic books in the Bible, in the Old and in the New Testament. And they are often based on specific historic events, and they react to them. They describe radical changes that happen in the world around them, in granted, often very strange images, but they are a product of the experiences of the people and how they try to make sense of what is happening to them. And the apocalypse wants to offer comfort, hope, and a future, even if no one knows when the future will become reality. But about that day or hour, no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. So suddenly this text fits very well into our situation in Advent of 2020. We already are in the crisis, or a multitude of crises. And we long for good news about vaccines, sensible measures of prevention everywhere, numbers of infections going down, of politicians worldwide acting adequately. We long for the apocalypse, the revelation, the uncovering of a reality where the suffering ends, right? But as Christians, we are again in between and live in this unresolved tension. We know God is faithful. We know God took on human form in Jesus Christ, and by his death and resurrection, we are freed from sin and will have a life beyond death. But we still live in this world. We are still human, still broken. Eternal hope and human despair, both at the same time. And sometimes in the midst of a crisis, when everything feels unpredictable, uncertain, frightening, and brutal, we have trouble feeling God's presence and faithfulness. That's why we need this apocalypse. We need to hear the promise of God's faithfulness and of God's final return. We need to be reminded of God's presence in our lives, because God is present and God stays. That's why we have to wait, to be aware, to keep alert and watch for the signs of God in our lives, to strengthen our hope, and also to be able to remain active and not get paralyzed by the overwhelming need and suffering, because we are still in charge, each with his work, like the text says. We are still called to serve our neighbor, especially now. So I invite you during this season of Advent to watch out for your personal apocalypse, the revelation of God in your life, moments of hope and future. And while being awake and alert in that way, to serve your neighbors around you. And by doing so, you'll carry God's light, hope, and future into the world. Amen.